Benvenido, bitches! Usually, I don't like going for low-hanging fruit. I don't like going for low-hanging fruit because usually when there's so many people talking about a thing, it's not necessary to explain the reasons why it's wrong, but I gotta get my licks in. I gotta get this one. I gotta do it. So, extra credits. Let's evaluate your homework, shall we? Take us away, numbnuts.
There you are, playing the PvP in your World War II shooter, and all of a sudden, you're a Nazi.
All of a sudden. One more time. One more time.
There you are, playing the PvP in your World War II shooter, and all of a sudden, you're a Nazi.
So, your hypothesis is, all of a sudden, I become a Nazi. All of a sudden, I turn on the computer. I buy the game. I go to the store. I buy the game. I put the game out in front of me. I put the game in front of me. I open up the box. I take out the instruction manual. I take out the game insert. I read it. I read the plot synopsis. I get a detail of all my characters. Right? I turn the box over. I look at the back of the box. I put the game in. I press on. I boot it up from the CD drive. Now all of a sudden I'm a Nazi. Okay. Oh, right. Okay. I see a hypothesis. Your hypothesis is, by virtue of associating myself with the content of a video game, I automatically become the content in that video game. Let's test that theory. Okay, so if I was to put in Fighter's Destinies 2, I load it up, I put it into my N64, and I turn it on, do I become an automatically hot, bodacious babe who Christina would probably tweet boob mooring at? If I put in Donkey Kong 64, do I automatically become a monkey? To be specifically a greater ape with anthropomorphic features and cartoonist design? Because that would make you a racist, now wouldn't it? If I plug this in, if I put this game in and I start playing it, do I automatically become a brainwashed soldier who possibly has been involved in crimes that they were going to forever be haunted by? How about this game? If I put this game in, do I automatically become a member of a very long line of assassins fighting a war against the Templar? How about this one? Do I become a sci-fi great and epic who's dealing with people and things and places with mythical and magical weaponry? How about this one? Do I become the new protagonist of the Star Ocean? Can I go to places inside of ships? Can I travel to these places and destroy the evils that exist there? Can I finally craft an alchemy stone with 100% of my ratio? How about these games? Do I become a Akira Toriyama drawing? And do I become capable of summoning a demon from a shadow? How about this one? Do I become a person who's hunting on Pandora? Do I get to go to the ledge and kill Cromarax over and over again? No, I do not, sir. Not with any of these games I have in front of me. Not in the case of SSX, the remake, which is mildly decent. Not in the case of Dark Souls. Not in the case of The Last Remnant. Certainly not in the case of Dark Void, which itself is kind of a write-off Capcom game. Not in the case of any of my editions and versions of Hardest Party. Not in the case of Phantasy Star Universe. Or Blaze Blue. Monster Hunter Ultimate. Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker. Not in any of these fucking games, sir. When I boot them on, do I automatically become the person in the story doing the thing with their system of understanding, faith, or belief? What you just said is a fucking lie. And it's a lie that only works if you think that I can't think for myself. We're gonna get back to that. Continue.
You didn't ask for this. You didn't choose this. Yet there it is. And it's treated no differently than playing a British soldier.
Here's a hypothesis. Did I not make the choice to go out and buy the game? Did that not happen? Did I not make that choice and decision, sir? Because I faintly remember buying every single one of these games. I remember driving to the store with my parent. I remember purchasing it either with my money or them purchasing it for me with their money for one of my birthdays. I remember sitting down with this game. I remember spanking people on the internet if it had online multiplayer function. I remember going on quests for hate mail. I remember doing all of these things. I remember making these choices with these games, whether they were single player or multiplayer with a single player campaign. In every single one of these, I remember making the choice to play the game, play it over and over again, and play the contents to the point that I became intimately familiar with the universe, the characters, the story, the setting, the writing choices, who wrote it, what other things they did. I remember making that decision. I chose to support the official release. Since I made a choice to play the game, I understand something that you seem to not be getting. Also, it makes no difference. Okay. Alright. It makes no difference. If I pop in Legend of Zelda, and throughout the playthrough of this new game, hypothetically speaking, I discover that I'm playing as Ganondorf Dragmire in his teenage years. And I find myself in the position of the villain, murdering the hero of Hyrule and the princess incarnation of Zelda. Or even a version of Ganon returned from his incarnation of long slumber and mummification. And I find myself fighting not against just Link and Zelda, but I instead find myself fighting against the fierce deity and goddess Hylia. Does it make no difference who the protagonist in that story is? You know, if I kill Link, and if I kill Zelda, and if I kill the fierce deity, and if I kill the goddess Hylia, and suddenly the game changes from the position of Ganondorf laying down the final blow to Link stabbing him in the chest, does it really make no difference who the protagonist is if the story sets it up? Do we not do competency anymore? Is that what you're saying? Because either fucking way, I think it does matter. And it probably doesn't have a difference in certain cases. In a single player game, where I'm playing as a person and my choices are supposed to have decision making that affects the story, or if I'm playing a video game that would be considered on rails, you know, it has scripted sequences, you go through the actual content itself, you learn the overall world which you're playing in, and you interact with that world and make decisions in that world, I would think that it would make a difference in that case. In a multiplayer game, where you're put on sides, either by choice or by RNG, when everyone boots into the lobby and they sit down, they choose their perks, they choose their weapons, and the system says, alright, based on your prior history and on your KDA record, I'm putting you on the blue team or the red team. You're telling me that it makes a difference what team I'm on, that I'm assigned by the system deciding that I go there. I'm never really one for the purple side on League of Legends. Does that automatically mean that because you put me on the purple side, I want to genocide all of Runeterra? But if I don't want to be on the blue side, does that mean that Noxus is right and Demacia doesn't deserve to be? The point I'm making here is, number one, that's stupid. I purchased the game. I signed up for the system. I put myself into the situation to be part of and to do the thing that I'm trying to do, which is play a game, sir. You seem to be playing a different game than I am, but we're gonna allow you to do that. And two, you're telling me that it makes no difference how a costume a person puts on so that they may be able to engage in the matchmaking system. You're telling me that it makes no difference what side is there, except the bad side is the one that's wrong. Especially when we're talking about, as Bass FXX would put it, the evil's evil that ever eviled. Go on.
This is bad on so many levels. No one should ever have a random chance of fighting for the Nazis.
I just explained this. Hit the note again. Random number generator. I don't have a choice. I shouldn't have a choice, because if I have a choice to choose which team I go on, I automatically fuck with the numbers, right? Remember? Remember that thing called meritocracy? Oh, right. Okay, remembering now. You don't think that is a thing that exists. Continue.
And we should never express that there's no meaningful difference between Nazis and Allied soldiers, or that they're functionally interchangeable. And before anyone equivocates and says not all German soldiers in World War II were Nazis, if they were wearing the swastika and are functioning as an arm of the Nazi government, then unless the game goes out of its way to tell you specifically that your particular character is not a Nazi, then they're a Nazi.
Oh my god. How are you like this? How are you like this? Are you real? First off, people don't talk like that. There is not a single person, for or against, who talks like that. There's no person who has ever made the argument of, actually... Simple Simon does not exist anywhere except for in my head, and on the pages of a comedy script. There's not a single person in the world who you could possibly point to who isn't outright baiting you, who's telling you, actually, if they are a person who is on the Allied forces or on the enemy forces, they aren't actually a Nazi if they work in the field. No, shut up. That's a Kafka trap. That's a Kafka trap, and you fucking know it, and that's why you said it. No. No. We're not playing that game, okay? That's number 1 and number 2 and number 3, as I've already explained. When you make this argument, when you say one side is extremely worse than the other, but we're treating them as though they have no difference, in the context of people putting on costumes so that they can play a game, what you're doing is pretending that images have power. And the symbols have power, which they do. But the problem here is that in the context of a video game, suddenly, because my friend Ian puts on a handlebar mustache with some mutton chops and nice plaids, and he puts an armband on with the Kekistani flag, and he calls himself a Kekster and wears a mask, and I put on a suit and tie, and I call myself John Wick, that suddenly we both can't play a game of Fortnite. That's not how that works. Because the second that you try to claim this, what you're actually doing is you're trying to associate me with Nazis outside of the concept of, a video game. And when it's a skin, when we know that we're participating in what is effectively a reenactment and a play. You are telling me that the likeness of a creature becomes that creature. So the likeness of the bad person, the second I associate myself with it, I automatically become that person, and thus deserve to be knifed in the back. And the reason why they have no equivocation to each other, and the reason why we don't treat them as though they have any power, is because we understand it's a costume. It's something we put on. It doesn't have power. It didn't have power when it was just a costume. It doesn't have power after we take off the costume. If I log into the lobby, I get put onto the losing team, and I log out of the lobby, I don't permanently stay on that team forever. Same thing if I was on the winning side. So, what is your point here?
In that multiplayer shooter, when it switched you to the German side, did it go out of its way to tell you that the person you're playing was pressed into service under threat of their life? Yeah, that's a big old nope.
Okay, so you've never heard of the draft, basically. You've never taken world history after 1840, because last I fucking checked, especially before 1840, the world waged wars by going up and down the River Niles, or the River Thames, or trains set across the industrial plain of the West and the East, and they looked the face of mothers and fathers in the eyes and told their sons, hey, little Timmy, you gotta go to war now. You gotta go pledge yourself to the nationality of your race and protect your people. They did that. They did it to the Americans, they did it to the Frenchmen, they did it to the British, they did it to the Germans, they did it to the Italians, they did it to the Polish, they did it to any side that was willing to fight for their ability to, exist. Those people died. That's why we have the red poppy. You want to do me a favor and not shit on the dead? That'd be great. Because if you're gonna do that again, well, let's just don't. How about you just don't, okay? The world, as you see it, in this situation, you're apparently confusing fiction with reality, alright? I'm gonna need you not. Because, if you're just going to pretend that people are Nazis online because they logged into the lobby, they dusted you real quick, and they hit you with that 25 kill cam detonation of the nuke, I need you to not play Modern Warfare 2 anymore, just because you clearly are not good at it. As much as you are with arguments.
Oh, and on a similar note, let's please stop forcing people to play as terrorists as well. There you are, playing your modern shooter, and all of a sudden you're a terrorist.
Sir, repeat last statement. And the statement before that one. People are wearing costumes. That's what being assigned to the enemy team is. It's temporarily telling yourself, for the situation of doing this thing, you're going to be over here, and I'm going to be over here. You're going to be a Ravaged City Royal, and I will be a Black City Bengal. We're going to take this ball, and we're going to shoot it into each other's opposite hoops. If I get one in your hoop, I get a point, and if you get one in my hoop, we get a point. First one to 15 wins. Go! That's what's happening there. If you pretend that when I get a hoop, what I'm actually doing is saying, fuck the Juden, well then I'd have to ask you, who taught you how to be such a good Nazi?
You didn't ask for this, you didn't choose this, and yet second verse, same as the first. There it is.
Still as wrong as the first time you said it.
I mean, that's literally the name of your side in the game.
Again! The name doesn't matter. The side doesn't matter. As I just demonstrated. If you name your team the Black City Bengals, and I name your team the Red Grave Royals, shouldn't matter who wins and who loses in that situation, because it's just a name! You goddamn! Ah!
We can do better than this. Even if you put aside all of the people who have had traumatic experiences with these groups.
People like me, who are descendants of chattel slavery,
who have lost loved ones to terrorists,
people like me who were taken in by people sent across this river by our own countrymen and tribesmen who sold us for guns,
or who have had generations of their families wiped out by Nazis.
Like all the generations of my forefathers who bought into chattel slavery, well, sold into chattel slavery, and then found themselves here in the Americas.
No one should have to put on the costume of an ideology they find abhorrent without actually opting into it in your game.
Again, as I already said, if a person chooses to play a video game, they are already giving their consent to be on that side. When I signed up to make an account with Riot, when I chose to sign up and make an account and purchase products on Steam, when I made a choice to buy a console, to make a Xbox Live account, buy an Xbox Live Gold membership, and then play video games using that Xbox Live Gold membership, I made a choice and I made an agreement that I will follow the terms of service and the end-user license agreement therein in this contract. A contract which they can take away from me at any goddamn time when I play this video game. And as I made the choice to play the video game and to log in, choose my character, assign my qualities, my traits, my perks, and so on, and continue to engage in the universe of it, as I make the choices that have consequences, I made the choice to be on that side. And no, just because you keep saying that word does not mean that makes me that thing. I'm sorry. It's not how that works. People make choices to play video games. And if they are assigned on the enemy team, when they are loading into a 5-on-5 match with 9 other people, they are one of the 10 in that situation that have agreed, we're going to play a video game, first to the objective wins. You're equivocating reality with fiction again.
And by making people do so, we get them to stop thinking about it, to stop thinking of the meaning behind these things. We normalize them.
That's not how that works. Normalizing is when you take something that is horrible and you treat it as though it is not an important thing. For example, abortion, or murder, or terrorism, or rape. Last I fucking checked, I live in the first goddamn world. I live in a place that was settled by majority white men, specifically Anglo-Saxons, Protestants. They came and they said, yo, I kind of don't like how you're putting us on a side without representation. And King George III said, if you don't like slavery, get the fuck over it. You're on my side. And in my British colonies, we stand slaves. And those founding forefathers said, you know, I hear you, but no. And much as then, as I am saying now, no, that's not how that works. Meanwhile, you, right now, are normalizing the action of being a moral guardian. Sorry, no. I'm not giving you that power. Because I know what that scepter of power actually comes with. I know the cost of that power. And you, clearly, are a tyrant. You are a tyrant who's asking for me to give you the privilege to be censorious and tyrannical to me. I reject your chains, sir.
We make them just window dressing for entertainment. Those uniforms, those symbols, become things that no longer inherently revolt us.
I can't even bring myself to head desk. That's how stupid that was.
They reduce our visceral reaction to seeing the embodiment of these ideologies.
So, again, drawing back to my Ganondorf persuasion. Imagine yourself in the video game as what would normally be seen in the history of a franchise as the bad guy. Imagine this character is now made sympathetic. We see the process by how Ganondorf Dragmire becomes the embodiment of the King of Evil. The moment that his pure soul is possessed and overshadowed and controlled by the evil of demise. We go through his formative years. We see him grow up as a boy. We see him being whipped into shape by Twin Rova. We witness Kakami and Kome train him in the mystical dark arts. We watch him have a life. We watch him get beaten by other males by being ostracized by them. We see him being rejected by women in his adult life because they know that he's going to become an evil god. We see him become the king of the tribe and either be summarily worshipped by his cultists or rejected by the greater summation of them because they all know what comes next. And we witness this character in a sympathetic light get murdered by the prince. And by the prince, I mean by Link himself. We watch him get attacked on all sides by every single tribe and by every single faction. Would you say at that point, the same way that in the history of the Zelda franchise, that the Gerudo have been seen as normalized as monsters, and thus it has been normalized to hate them to the point of massacring them? Ever played Twilight Princess? You know what the Arbiter's Ground is? You know what the Graveyard and what Ocarina of Time's Shadow Temple is? Normalizing is what happens when a person dehumanizes people to the point that they are acceptable targets. By mocking the Nazis, by mocking any ideology, which we find abhorrent, like yours, when we mock them, we are demonstrating the things about them that are to be admonished and the things that were abused that put them into the political climate. We're not even in the political climate for this shit to be necessary. So, already from Jump Street, you're already starting from a false presupposition, right? And then you make an axiomatic presupposition on top of that false narrative that because we talk about things, because we use things as skins and as characters, it somehow automatically makes that thing more evil than the other side, which dresses themselves up in all the nice and happy things, and yet seems to have a penchant on murdering those who they find deemed unacceptable. Some pigs are just more equal, huh?
Now, does this make us totally ignore the history that comes with them? No. But for some people, it moves them from the territory of revolting to just edgy. It makes scrawling a swastika on something change from unthinkable to just dangerous. It means you might not take iron crosses all over a website as a warning sign that you should immediately leave. And if you don't leave, you might start reading and buying into hateful ideas there.
The Iron Cross is not a symbol of Nazism. The inverted Uramanji is the symbol of National Socialism, sir. It is a perversion of the Buddhist and Hindu symbol of what, in the form of the Uramanji, represents strength and intelligence. The 45-degree perversion of that symbol is the perversion that the National Socialists have declared themselves the strong intellectual Ubermensch. That's why they called themselves the Aryans, you goddamn simpleton! It's why they paid women to have children that have blue eyes and blonde hair. They declared themselves the just and ordained. And they aligned themselves with a symbol of their own creation to fill out that ideology. And then they took multiple other symbols of honor and other symbols of sanctity throughout history, and they put them on themselves to denote themselves of class, like of time, class, rank, creed. All of these things, the symbols, by themselves, isolated in a void, out amongst multiple other symbols of their kind, have no power. The power is inside of the things that they thought. What the symbol meant to them, not just what the symbol means to you. What if I was to tell you that when I look at the extra credit symbol, I can't help but think of an SJW Nazi? Oh shit, that just doesn't work for you now, does it? Because clearly you're not Nazis. And clearly the other person who says that they're not a Nazi is clearly a Nazi. So what are you actually fucking telling me again? I want to see where this logic of yours goes, sir.
It seems like such a small and simple thing.
Because it fucking is, and it doesn't goddamn matter in the long scheme.
But it's things like this that erode our safeguards against dangers we sacrifice so much to fight.
You mean like when verified checkmarks and journos decide to gatekeep by choosing what stories to cover and what stories to completely ignore, thus making it seem that it's acceptable to talk about the acceptable targets and it's unacceptable to talk about the unacceptable and ignored targets? Is it kind of like what happens when on a platform, a publisher, a platforming publisher, tells you, yes, we understand that this person who you're reporting on, who it is newsworthy to report on, is a pedophile. But you see, we protect pedophiles, and by you telling them their name, you're actually harassing them. Is that not something that erodes the safeguards of the people? Because I would like to tell you about this guy in Portland who got himself kicked the shit out of by covering people who act like you.
By the time you've played 100 hours of being a Nazi, their voice stabs become memes and in-jokes with your friends. By the 1000th time you've respawned as a terrorist, you're either celebrating them or making fun of them.
Oh god, Lord forbid that I fucking mock something! Huh, no, we cannot treat things with comedy, guys! We have to treat everything super fucking serious! By mocking the Nazis, you're actually worshipping the Nazis! What the fuck is wrong with you? No. Mocking something does not normalize it. It otherizes it. It puts it in a position where every time that person speaks, the first thing people remember about them is, hey, aren't you that guy that thinks that it's hilarious for people to get kicked in the face? And then they play a video of you getting kicked in the face by people you attacked. And then they show you crying about, oh my god, how could you kick me in the face? It's unacceptable to do that. You should be worshiping me. I've been mocking you this entire video. So by your logic, sir, what you're actually telling me is that by mocking you, I actually support you. No. Secondly, and this is the more important part, when a person sees something that is so objectionably hilarious that it deserves to be mocked because it invokes another meme, those memes themselves are not support of the thing that they are mocking. They are actually a denouncement and a disassociation from the thing that they're mocking. I might just have to make a meme about you. Although, this video does that for me. You cannot claim that everybody that you don't like is the bad one, and that you are the good one, and then say bad things about the other people to justify you lynching them. That's normalizing, as I've already said. The opposite of that, when a person sees something that you said, and they say, that's dumb, and then they go on to explain why, because you can't just treat people as though one thing's acceptable and the other isn't. It's either all okay or none of it's okay. You cannot turn around and say, lol, you just don't understand what I'm saying. Because I can do this thing called thinking for myself. Other people can do it too. I constantly tell people to do that. And for some reason, they just, for some goddamn fact, can't bring themselves to look at themselves in a mirror. Probably because when they look at back in the mirror, they don't see themselves anymore. They see a version of themselves they'd like to be. Reality, fiction. Can you habla?
The global crisis we have that takes thousands of lives every year. So what do? That's easy. Don't.
Let's go back, because I want to make sure you hear that part there.
Neither of which helps the global crisis
Mainly because I accidentally muted it.
we have that takes thousands of lives every year. So,
One more time. Just make sure we heard that.
or making fun of them. neither of which helps the global crisis we have that takes thousands of lives every year.
You fucking what, mate? What global crisis? What global crisis are you talking about? The global crisis of people laughing at you online? The global crisis of people critiquing others on the internet? The global crisis of people mocking others on the internet? Or did you mean the global crisis of harassment around the globe? Okay, give it to me. What's your solution?
So what do? That's easy. Don't make them morally equivalent.
How about we don't have morals? Would that suit you, sir?
Don't make there be no in-game moral difference between your Nazis and your allies, between your terrorists and your counter-terrorist squads. Frame PvP as a training exercise, or...
Playing a video game is in itself an exercise. You're mentally having to note down, jot down, hold in your memory information, deliver things, hand-eye coordination, cognitive critical thinking skills, reaction times, mechanics, core gameplay mechanics, extensivized detailing and remembering of the muscle memory, of the dexterity itself involved with inputting the commands. Not to mention, in the context of things like, say, MOBAs, the context of you playing what is effectively a war game. Strategies, stratagems, long and short way tactics. Every video game is in itself a training exercise, and the action of playing the video game is further training towards the point of learning how to play that game. When someone taught you how to play basketball, they were teaching you how to be a better basketball player. When you first shot your first layup, you were learning the methods on how to get a layup over forms of point defense. I should know. I played basketball. Mind you, in a private school system. But I was a point guard. I remembered teaching my team and doing what I had to do to get my center and my forwards and everyone on the team to work together. Because we were not very good at layups. So I taught them how to give layups. And then I found a person who was good at doing jumpers, who could always consistently hit a three. Teaching them how to do the thing we did made them better at the thing they're doing. Much how you, playing a shooter game, becoming better at Call of Duty, being capable of reacting to situations, knowing where the peak boxes that allow you to protect your hitbox, yet you can be able to hit others' hurtbox, are wall banging, the spots at which you throw tomahawks across the map to be able to hit people out. These things and positions and these tactics, they don't have a moral equivalency. Anyone can do them. Much like how you're doing it. Also, by the way, remember when I said about the blue and red thing? Boom shakalaka!
Simply take one of your non-odious sides and recolor them so that it's red versus blue, rather than Axis versus allies. A good example...
Or Red Grave Royals and Black City Bengals.
Example of a game that does this is Rainbow Six Siege. All of your bomb diffusion and hostage rescue multiplayer with no normalizing terrorists. In fact, by having all of the characters as counter-terrorists training for a possible threat, it highlights how real and present of a threat that is. And if you decide that you need to have both sides be playable, don't make them interchangeable. Don't have players randomly spawn in as one or the other. Allow players to choose which side they're on. Now, of course, this has all sorts of in-game problems, such as creating shorter wait times for fascists, but you know what? Those wait times could be artificially extended if it meant players had an active choice in what teams they would represent if you're saying we need people playing Nazis in our games. And if you're going to say, but we need it for historical reasons, then your game better actually be historical. You can't really just hide behind the fact you called your desert map El Alamein and say, but it's historical. If that were the case, you need your PvP to at least represent real historical events and be a realistic take on those battles.
So, when I play a war game, in your version of reality, what I need to do is I need to program it so that when someone hits me with an explosive and I don't die, I lose my leg. If they hit me with a hatchet and it takes off my arm, I don't get that arm back. And if my character dies, I don't respawn. I just get booted out of the game, and the game shuts itself down, erases itself from my hard drive, and I'm never allowed to play it again. Because that would be realistic. There's a game that actually existed like that, and it failed. Please make a game like this. Please promote a game like this. Please go out there and tell people, I have a realistic depiction of what it's like to be in a street fight with Antifa and the Proud Boys. Two sides that absolutely are not equal to each other. And I want people to play as a member of the Proud Boys. And I want them to get hit in the head with a chain and a bike lock by an anatomically correct Eric Clapton. I want them to see themselves on screen bleed out from the head and be treated with a, you now have massive severe brain injury and no longer will lead a sane person in life again. I want that to happen. I want that to happen because I want them to look towards you and ask you the question, why did you make this game like this? This fucking sucks. And I want you to tell them, oh no, little Timmy, you chose to play as a Proud Boy. That means you deserve to have longer wait times, no respawn, and absolutely come pre-equipped with a wooden stick, while I get a fast lane, have multiple respawns at the same position where I died, I get all of my loot back that normally would drop when it was supposed to drop on death as part of the permadeath structure we made, and I get to have thousands of attack speed as I beat your head in with this bike lock! You're a clown, sir. You're an utter fucking clown. What is wrong with you? Why do you act like this? I don't understand how a person can sit down and make an argument this goddamn loony.
Once you make both sides balanced, it's also no longer historical. And you can't really say that you need Nazis anymore for historical accuracy.
Actually, I can. Because they were Nazis. They existed. Weimar Germany happened. Beefsteak Nazis happened. Adolf Hitler, the young wolf, happened. Much like how King Oscar, who sailed upon the river Gao, settled in the cities of Timbuktu and Jenne, the name which I have, that man existed. As did Alexander the Great, supposedly. As did Napoleon Bonaparte. As did George Washington. And Abraham Lincoln. And Mahatma Gandhi. And King George III. And Henry John IV. And Benito Mussolini. And Saddam Hussein. And Osama bin Laden. And Gaddafi. These things existed, thus I can make a game about them. These things existed, so I can write a book about them. These places where they lived were real and are real. It's why we can go there and they have pictures of them. Because you keep trying to hold this one specific group up as the greatest evil to ever eviled. And because you're denoting them as the worst thing ever, you're making an excuse to not only ruin everyone's fun, as you wear a clown suit when we're all wearing costumes, you're also telling me that I can't decide for myself if I choose to play a game. You're telling other people that they don't have brains of their own. And they don't have the ability to think for themselves. You need to think for them. Consistently and intermittently with this nonsensical fucking take. You're also holding the same opinion that you deserve to be right and I deserve to be wrong. And no matter how many ways I tell you that you're wrong, you're still right. Because history!
Oh, and once you let players get cool weapons that weren't actually at that particular battleground, it's also no longer historically accurate. And you can't declare that your game will suffer if you don't put players in the jackboots of the Third Reich.
It's also not historically accurate to have only 5 people on the side with 5 other people in universes where we have thousands and millions of characters that are playable. It's not accurate for there to be only 100 versus 100 people. That's why PlanetSide 2 is probably the greatest example of how war actually worked, because you're not just playing with 100 of people at a time. You're actually playing in a live server connected with thousands of other people who interact with themselves in the form of guilds and outfits that are who are intermittently connected and linked to the faction that they represent, including that 4th faction of people who choose to switch sides when they're losing. The Vanu, the Terrans, the New Conglomerate, those 3 factions themselves all represent not anything to do with inherently one thing that they could be likened to. They are the Vanu, sovereignty, they are the Terran Republic, and they are the New Conglomerate. With the splinter cell factions that exist amongst them, that choose to change their accounts when their side are losing. Because some people like the Vanu, and they have big, nice maxes that have the feature of max overdrive, which make them very good infantry grinders. We have people who are part of the Terrans, who have very good light and heavy submachine guns and assault rifles, that outside of the unfactioned weapons, tend to have very high fire rates and can really grind somebody up who they can catch out, along with really good access to having the air and very good aerospace vehicles. And we have the New Conglomerate, who are masters of demolition and feature engines which can not only destroy aircraft better and can destroy land vehicles better, but also have rocket launchers that when you hit that thing, it's going to do damage, even against a person who be in the field without certain kinds of armor. And the only thing that's going to be able to stand up to it is a very large infantry of heavy units with their armor on, running towards your direction, firing their own rockets at your own position. There's nothing historical, mind you, about PlanetSide 2, other than the fact that it is a proper representation of the first game, PlanetSide. But PlanetSide 2 achieves what it's supposed to do. It is a live-scale representation of war. It's not even in itself a game at that point. It's a lifestyle. I should know, I was a member of multiple factions, including my own, amongst the faction of the New Conglomerate on the Northwest account, or the Northeast, the Northeast account servers of Matherson. I know Desire. I know the Ascendant. I know Voodoo Company. And even of myself, when I ran my unit, Core, we were special units. My people were about covert operations, going in, hitting a target, and blowing it the fuck up. The importance there was that when people talked about my unit, they called me undercover racists. Because when we would go in blazing the most dank gangster rap. 1 second, you're manning your station as a sniper out in the field. Next thing you know, you hear X is gonna give it to you, and an entire battalion of rocket launchers come out of nowhere and blow up every single thing you had, including your respawn vehicles and your escape mechanism and your beacons. And suddenly, 100 NC members are flying in on my position, along with our multi-raid factions across TeamSpeak, and we're all now blasting X is gonna give it to you. Arguing what you're arguing does not remove the fact that people are still playing a video game, sir.
And once your map is something carefully designed to have good gameplay by a team in a room in San Francisco or LA, and it's not a faithful reconstruction of the actual places the historical events occurred in, you can no longer say we need to have players take up arms in service of terror or hate.
Once again, depending on what side you claim to be on, that doesn't matter who you consider to be the terrorist. Again, factions work like that when you're playing a video game. By design. With the example I just gave. And all other examples as well. Red versus blue. Purple side versus blue side. One player versus another. Do you think people don't have brains? Is that it? Is that it?
And look, we're not saying we can't have games about World War II or about terrorism. We're not even saying we shouldn't make games where you play as a Nazi or a terrorist.
Except you just spent near 5 minutes saying exactly that.
But what we are saying is that the fact that you're playing as a Nazi or a terrorist in a game has to mean something.
Yes, it does. When I chose New Conglomerate, I looked at all the faction and I said, you know what? I don't really find myself about being somebody who claims himself as the sovereignty. They all have this purplish color that make them look alien, and their designs look inherently sleek and well-formed, as though it came out of a oxygenarian chamber, and that it's part of them and it's an organic function of them. I don't identify with them. And I looked over at the Terran Republic and I thought, well, you know, the design on their armor, it doesn't look very nice. They look very free, and it all seems to be very inherently fascistic. And I don't exactly feel like being on a side that has the color red. I don't really like the color red. And then I looked at the NC and I thought, the New Conglomerate. Freedom fighter design. People who've been fighting against people. Numbers of the NC on the server heavily outweighed by the Vanu, and somewhat equal to that of the Terrans. Sign me the fuck up! That's what I did when I saw that. It doesn't have to mean anything other than the player count on the server. It doesn't have to mean anything other than the character is the character description that is written on their bio. It doesn't have to mean anything across from 3 basic abilities, an ultimate ability, and a possible passive that is a part of their kit function. It doesn't have to mean anything more than that. A character can just be a character. A person is a person. A video game is a video game. A human live player playing against a human live player is 2 people engaged in a duel. Why do you feel the need to constantly make excuses so that you can tell other people to stop doing the thing that you're doing? It makes you look kinda like a grammar and video game publicist Nazi, sir.
And it can't just be a skin. It can't be something that a game randomly drops you into.
Yes, it fucking can.
And really, if we are saying anything in this episode, it's this. Games can do better.
No, they don't have to do any better. They don't have to do any worse. They just have to do what the fuck they want to do. If CD Projekt Red wants to make a video game that is a follow-up of a board game called Cyberpunk 2020 and make it into Cyberpunk 2077, and they want to have Keanu Reeves on stage as a presenter, portraying a character known as Johnny Silverhand, he can fucking do that! They can fucking do that! The same way that if you choose to make this video, you can choose to do that. But what you can't do is then proceed to tell me, or anyone who makes games, hey, you gotta do this. Hey, you gotta do that. It's not a thing we have to do, sir.
And in this particular case, it's not even that hard to do better. And it's no more costly to do better.
Yes, it fucking is. It's costly. There is a cost. The cost is you take something from them and they have to do something you said. I'm not even fucking bother. Bye, guys. Oh, God. It's so bad. It's so bad.